Hi, this is Ed Harrow, Chair of the Hopkinton Open Space Preservation Commission, and I'm just giving a little highlight of what we did at our meeting last Thursday. Normally, we meet the first Thursday of the month, but this month we decided that we should wait until after town meeting because there was an item on the agenda that didn't really end up on the agenda, but it was a placeholder on the agenda that we thought we might have to respond to in some way. So from the top, our first thing we talked about was that volunteers from Friends of Whitehall replaced the signposts and things for the Whitehall Conservation Area parking lot sign. So it looks great. And I requested permission to write a note to Friends of Whitehall thanking them for that, and that was granted. So I duly wrote the note. And in particular, I thank Jim Weckback and Tom. I thank them both for their efforts. Then the next thing on our agenda, an individual who lives on Winter Street, David Reed, there's a trail, an open space trail that comes to semi through his property, and it crosses over some open space, not his property, but open space property wetlands. And it really needs some help, like a bridge, like we build a lot of in Hopkinton. So he came to open space to see if it would be okay with open space if he personally built the bridge. And we said, sure, and suggested that he probably also needs to talk to the Conservation Commission. And so I have passed his contact information along to Kim so that she can touch base with him and see whether he needs to formally come to the Conservation Commission and file a permit, et cetera, et cetera. Then the next thing on our agenda was we being Maury and I, Maury Gasser, been very busy walking around the Whisper Way property, making sure that boundary pins that didn't get put in are getting put in the right place and so forth. And when we made our earlier walkthrough, one piece of property at 2 Whisper Way, the boundary was marked with a couple big boulders with large spaces between the boulders. So the boulders are in the right place, but there are large spaces between the boulders. And as somehow magically happens, lawn was showing up on open space property. So we instructed the nations to tighten that up a little bit so it wouldn't be so easy to put a lawnmower through there, and to make it, obvious that this property belongs to open space. So as asked, the nations indeed put some signposts up with open space medallions on them. And this got the attention of the property owner who came to the open space meeting and wondering what this was all about. So we had a lengthy discussion, and we said, we're happy to remove these markers with the understanding that the grassy area on our side is left to revert to whatever it wants to be without any further attention from lawnmowers. And that, we would periodically be by and have a look-see and make sure that that was happening. The rest of the Whisper Way area, I really have to congratulate the nations. They've been working very, very hard at getting all these boundary markers in, and for a portion which they're referring to as the corridor, which would connect the immediate parcel around the houses on Whisper Way to Valleywood. And Maury and I walked that with Craig Nation a couple of weeks ago, and we discussed some changes. So property that was going to go to open space from the nations around the Whisper Way development, they're going to hold on to, and instead give us property at the other end of the corridor, which will facilitate a trail connection to Whisper or to Valleywood. So that is all great, and we're really happy about all of that. I had this idea, having seen stickers for like HALT and for other organizations, that we ought to have stickers for open space. But other than say we ought to have stickers for open space, that was the end of the discussion. There was no energy going to be spent there. Then we have been asked, we being open space and the Trails Committee, to take over the maintenance of the Hughes property, the Pratt property. And so we had a considerable discussion in open space as to exactly what that should include. And the end result of that is that I need to write up something, we need to agree to it, and then submit that to the Trails Club. But basically, in a nutshell, we would grant for our property permission to mow the trails, to maintain the trails, and to do a as required mowing of meadow areas to ensure that they stay a meadow, and to deal with invasives as they may exist on the properties. Which brought us up to Turkey Ridge, because a week or two ago I walked, or attempted to walk, Turkey Ridge with an individual from the firm that we've used to do invasive control work at the Whitehall Conservation Area. And we found that the boundaries are not marked in any way, so that we were really unable to do this. So we brought that to the attention of the planning board and John Gelsich, et cetera. And hopefully that will get marked soon, and then we can look at that and get a proposal and pass that along. Then website. We've been trying to get a website for a very long time. And so I have spoken with Linda Chuss, and we've got some ideas from Linda, and we voted to accept them. That would be using the same firm that other groups in town have used. And it's called the Lewis Studios. They're in Littleton, Mass. They've done the HALT website. They're working with the Trails Committee. I don't know if they did sustainability, but that's their background, is doing trails and open space work. So we're pretty hopeful that that will come through. So we voted to accept the proposal based on a very rough quote. So that all needs to be formalized. And see, then at our last meeting, we voted to acquire some trail cameras so that we can get an idea of the various critters that use our properties. We've had reports of bears, we've had reports of bobcats, we've had reports, as we know, of coyotes. And I've seen pictures of bobcats. I have not seen pictures of bears, but we figured that we should know who's there. So as you know, we had Dave Waddles from Mass Wildlife on, that you guys all facilitated. And so I've contacted Dave and asked for suggestions as far as equipment, as far as location, and things we need to think about. So he's provided a bunch of good information. I've gone shopping, and I've got a couple write-ups on these kinds of cameras and what works and what doesn't work, et cetera. So we're close to acquiring at least one, if not two. And then we'll get an idea what four-legged critters are wandering through our turf. And last but not least, besides minutes, we voted on a bunch of minutes. We've had invoices outstanding from the spring that have never been paid. And I'm hoping that we now have that resolved. So these were invoices for invasive control work, where half of it was supposed to be paid in the spring as a placeholder, and then half of it paid when the job was done. and that wasn't done. And then we also had some tree work done in the Whitehall Conservation Area, and that hasn't been paid. That's partly, it turns out, a vendor fault too, but regardless, these were invoices that should have been paid and kind of fell through the cracks. So that was our meeting. We had a grand time as per usual. Oh, I didn't bring any food or treats. And we had to meet on the third floor because town hall is pretty active at the moment with other people meeting and doing things. So we were a little cramped for style, but it all worked out. So there you go. Another fine meeting of open space, and thanks for listening. Have a good Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.